motorcycle taxi driver in Lomé counts his morning fares in coins that smell faintly of the sea, because the Gulf of Guinea sits just 300 meters from where he parks. This is a country you can drive across in a single day, north to south, from the dry Sahelian edge near Burkina Faso to the humid coastline where fishing pirogues still launch at dawn, and yet inside that narrow strip of land exists an entire spectrum of climate, language, and belief. Togo is a sliver of a nation, barely 56 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, squeezed between Ghana and Benin like an afterthought on the map of West Africa. But narrowness is deceptive here. What the country lacks in breadth, it makes up for in density of experience. Sacred forests older than written memory, a capital city rebuilding itself after decades of political turbulence, and a population where the median age hovers around 19, meaning most of the country has never known a Togo different from the one being built right now. This is the story of a place that foreign travelers rarely reach, not because it has nothing to offer, but because it has never needed to perform for outsiders. This is the story of how nearly 10 million people wake up, work, eat, and dream in the shadow of Montagu. The day in Togo begins before the sun fully commits to rising. In the Adolato and Bay neighborhoods of Lomé, women are already balancing enamel basins of bread and boiled eggs on their heads, moving toward intersections where the day's first customers will be office workers and school children in matching uniforms. Breakfast here is rarely a sit-down affair. It is eaten standing, walking, or perched on the edge of a zimijan, the ubiquitous motorcycle taxi whose name comes from the U phrase, meaning "take me quickly." A common morning meal is bouilli, a warm, slightly fermented millet or corn porridge sweetened with sugar and sometimes ginger, sold from roadside stalls alongside fried bean cakes called kous. In the north, around Kara and Sokode, breakfast might instead be chouk, a mildly alcoholic sorghum beer consumed even in the morning by some elders, less as intoxication and more as ritual continuity, a drink that has accompanied Kabi and Tem communities through generations of ceremonies. The pace of the morning is not slow exactly, but it is unhurried in a particular way. Togolese social rhythm operates on a principle sometimes described through the U concept of zizimefe, a rough sense of the way things unfold in their own time, which governs everything from market negotiations to greetings. And greetings matter enormously. To skip a greeting before starting a conversation, even a transactional one at a market stall, is considered a small social violation. Community here is built through accumulated small courtesies, checking on a neighbor's health, acknowledging an elder before addressing anyone younger, sharing cola nuts as a gesture of welcome. The market itself, particularly Lomé's Grand Marché, functions as a kind of social nervous system, a 3-story concrete structure where the Nana bends. The historically powerful female textile traders who once controlled the waxprint cloth trade still hold court, though their commercial dominance has faded since the industry's peak in the 1970s and 80s. By midday, the rhythm intensifies. School children pour out for lunch breaks. Artisans in the Akodesewa quarter continue their metalwork, and the heat itself becomes a kind of social organizer, pushing the most demanding labor into the early hours and reserving the afternoon for tasks that can be done in shade. But to understand why Togolese life holds together as tightly as it does, despite the country's ethnic and religious diversity, one must look past the daily routines and into the deeper structures of identity and belief. Togo is home to more than 40 ethnic groups, but 3 dominate the cultural landscape: the Yu in the south, concentrated around Lomé and the coastal region, the Kabye in the north-central mountains around Kara, and the Mina, closely tied to the coastal town of Anejo and the royal lineage of Glidji. Each group maintains distinct languages, though French remains the official language of government and education, while Yue and Kabye hold status as national languages taught in schools. The Kabye people are known for Evala, an annual wrestling initiation ceremony held in July in villages around Kara, in which young men undergo ritual combat that marks their formal transition into manhood. Spectators travel from across the region to watch, and success in the wrestling ring carries social weight that follows a man for years. Along the coast, the Mina people of Anejo and Glidji observe Epe Ekpe, the sacred stone festival marking the Gwyn New Year, held annually in early September, during which a priest interprets the color of a ceremonial stone pulled from a lagoon to forecast the fortunes of the coming year for the entire community. Further inland, the Uwe commemorate Agbogbozan, a festival held in Notse each January that reenacts the historic escape of Uwe ancestors from the tyrannical rule of King Agokuli, a story of liberation that shapes Uwe identity to this day, complete with reenacted flight through a symbolic wall breach. What unites these distinct traditions, despite their differences in language and ritual form, is a shared reverence for ancestral memory and land, a conviction expressed differently across groups that the living remain in conversation with those who came before, and that failing to honor that conversation invites misfortune. Voodoo, or Vodun, practiced widely along the coast and formally recognized as a legitimate spiritual tradition, exists comfortably alongside Christianity and Islam for many Togolese, who often move between systems of belief depending on the need at hand. A pragmatic spiritual pluralism rather than a contradiction. This same pragmatism defines how Togolese people approach work. The economy remains heavily agricultural and informal. Roughly a quarter of GDP still comes from agriculture, with cotton, cocoa, and coffee grown for export alongside subsistence crops like cassava, yams, and maize. Phosphate mining, concentrated around the town of Hahotoe and Kapeme, has historically been one of Togo's most significant industrial sectors, with the country holding some of the largest phosphate reserves in West Africa, though production has fluctuated over recent decades due to reserve depletion and global price shifts. GDP per capita sits at roughly $1,300 in nominal terms as of 2026, placing Togo among the world's lower-income economies, even as the IMF projects growth near 5% this year, driven substantially by port activity and public investment. The port of Lomé, the only deep-water port on this stretch of coast capable of accommodating large container vessels, has become a critical transshipment hub for landlocked neighbors like Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, and its continued expansion has made logistics and freight one of the country's most dynamic employment sectors. Yet formal employment remains the exception rather than the rule. The overwhelming majority of Togolese work in the informal sector, as market traders, artisans, small-scale farmers, or motorcycle taxi drivers, and youth unemployment, officially measured at only around 3 to 4%, masks a much larger reality of underemployment, where young people work but earn far too little to build financial security. Apprenticeship remains a deeply embedded economic institution here. A young tailor or mechanic might spend 2 to 3 years working essentially unpaid under a master craftsman, learning not just a trade, but the social obligations that come with eventually opening a shop of one's own. Work and rest are not sharply divided in Togolese daily life. A tailor's shopfront doubles as a social gathering point, and business is frequently conducted alongside extended conversation, tea, and the passing greetings of neighbors. That same intermingling of commerce and community defines how Togolese people eat, because food here is rarely separated from social obligation. Pat, also called akume, is the anchor of daily meals across most of the country. A firm, smooth dough made from cornmeal or a blend of corn and cassava flour, eaten by hand, torn into small pieces, and dipped into a sauce. The most beloved of these sauces is likely fetri detsi, a slightly slimy, deeply savory okra stew often prepared with fish or meat, its texture polarizing to outsiders but treasured for the way it clings to the pot. Akbal, a firmer cousin of pot made from corn and cassava flour, is often paired with edam, a soup built from jute leaves that carries an earthy, almost mineral flavor distinctive to the region. Along the coast, grilled tilapia and koklo meme, spiced grilled chicken, typically marinated with ginger, garlic, and chili, are sold at roadside grills called maki, informal open-air restaurants that double as evening social hubs, particularly popular among younger Togolese. Gari, a coarse granulated cassava product, appears in countless forms, from a simple soaked breakfast with sugar and milk to a base for heavier stews, and street vendors sell yovo doko, small sweet-fried dough balls whose name literally translates from Yui as the white man's bread, a linguistic echo of colonial-era trade routes that still lingers in the language of the market today. Most Togolese eat the largest meal of the day at midday or in the early evening, prepared at home by women who often cook over charcoal or wood in outdoor kitchens, and the ritual of eating from a shared bowl. Several people, one dish, hands instead of utensils, remains the norm in most households, a physical enactment of the communal values that structure so much of daily life here. The geography shapes the plate directly. The humid south, fed by Lake Togo and the Mano River, produces cassava, maize, and fish in abundance, while the drier Kara region to the north leans on sorghum, millet, and yams, crops suited to a shorter, harsher, rainy season. To understand the geography fully, one has to leave the market stalls and step into the landscape itself, because Togo's terrain does far more than decide what people eat. It decides where people live and how they move through the year. The country rises from a flat, sandy coastline along the Gulf of Guinea into the Togo Mountains, a range that runs diagonally across the country and includes Montagu, the nation's highest point at 986 meters. Its slopes terraced with coffee plantations that thrive in the cooler mountain air. Further north lies Fazao Malfakassa National Park, a protected reserve spanning roughly 192,000 hectares of savanna and gallery forest, home to elephants, baboons, and antelope, though decades of poaching pressure have reduced wildlife numbers significantly from historic levels. The Mano River, which forms much of the eastern border with Benin and stretches roughly 467 kilometers before reaching the sea, has long served as both a boundary and a lifeline, its floodplain supporting fishing communities and seasonal agriculture. Lake Togo, a lagoon separated from the ocean by a narrow sandbar near Agbodrafo, is where much of the country's small-scale fishing and lagoon transport happens, with dugout canoes still the primary vessel for households along its banks. The seasons here follow a rhythm dictated by two rainy periods in the south, roughly April through July, and a shorter one in September and October, while the north experiences a single long rainy season and a pronounced dry period influenced by the Harmattan wind, which carries fine Saharan dust south each winter and coats rooftops, skin, and lungs in a reddish haze. Farmers plan entire agricultural calendars around these rains, and the arrival or delay of the first storm is a matter of genuine communal anxiety, discussed with the same intensity that other cultures might reserve for economic news. Nowhere is that landscape more vivid than around Kapalime, a highland town near the Ghanaian border, often described by Togolese themselves as the country's most beautiful corner, its surrounding hills draped in cocoa and coffee plantations and threaded with waterfalls that locals visit less as tourist attractions and more as places of seasonal ritual. Kapimi Falls, fed by a stream that tumbles down a granite face near the village of Pime Seva, draws families on weekends who come to bathe in its cool basin, while the nearby Wome Falls, deeper in the forest and reached by a footpath through cocoa groves, remains quieter, favored by hikers willing to walk an hour or more from the nearest road. Above Kapalime rises the Danyi Plateau, a cooler tableland of red laterite soil where coffee has been cultivated since the German colonial period, its cliffside village of Kumakanda, offering views across a canopy so dense that the forest below is sometimes called Togo's Little Switzerland by residents, a comparison that says less about resemblance and more about how rare that particular green feels against the rest of the country's flatter terrain. Further south, the town of Togoville, sitting on the northern shore of Lake Togo, holds deep spiritual significance as the site where the German Protectorate Treaty was signed in 1884, and it remains today a center of Vodun pilgrimage, with sacred trees and shrines maintained by local priests who receive visitors seeking blessing or healing. Along the coast itself, the beaches near Anejo and Agbodrafo stretch for kilometers, lined with coconut palms and small fishing settlements, though the Atlantic here carries a strong undertow that keeps most swimming close to shore and confines the deeper water to the fishermen who know its currents by memory. And in the far north, beyond Fazao Malfacasa's elephant corridors, the Oti River Valley opens into wide floodplains that support some of the country's most fertile farmland, its seasonal flooding both a hazard for riverside villages and, paradoxically, the very reason the soil there remains so productive year after year. Together, these places reveal a geography that resists easy summary: mountain, lagoon, savanna, and coast, compressed into a country a person could drive across before lunch, each landscape asking something different of the people who call it home. Moving through this landscape, whether mountain village or coastal capital, happens mostly on 2 wheels rather than 4. Zemajans dominate transportation in every Togolese city, weaving through traffic with a practiced looseness that would unsettle most foreign visitors, and for many households, owning or driving one is a primary source of income rather than simply a means of transport. Formal public transportation remains limited. There is no metro or light rail system, and intercity travel typically happens via shared minibuses called taxi brousse, which depart only once full, embodying that same unhurried social logic that governs so much of daily life here. Lomé's road network has expanded substantially in the past decade, with Chinese-financed infrastructure projects widening key arteries and improving the corridor connecting the port to landlocked neighbors, a development source of considerable national pride given how central that port has become to regional trade. Mobile technology, meanwhile, has leapt ahead of physical infrastructure in ways that quietly reorganize daily life. Mobile money platforms allow market vendors without bank accounts to receive digital payments, and smartphone penetration, while still uneven between rural and urban areas, has made platforms like WhatsApp central to everything from small business coordination to extended family communication across the diaspora. Walking through central Lomé today means passing colonial-era German and French architecture, informal wooden kiosks selling phone credit, and increasingly new commercial towers financed by regional banking expansion, a visible layering of eras that never quite replace one another but simply accumulate. That accumulation is perhaps most visible in the lives of young Togolese who exist at the exact hinge point between these layers. The University of Lomé remains the country's largest institution of higher education, alongside the University of Kara in the north, and vocational training centers increasingly offer certifications in fields like electrical work, hospitality, and digital skills, responding to demand from a youth population that dominates the demographic pyramid. While official youth unemployment figures remain surprisingly low on paper, the more honest picture involves widespread underemployment and a persistent gap between the aspirations young Togolese hold and the formal opportunities available to meet them. Many young people describe feeling caught between 2 pulls: a desire for the connectivity and possibility they see through social media and diaspora networks abroad, and a rootedness to family land and obligation that makes leaving genuinely difficult, both practically and emotionally. Those who do leave often head to Ghana, France, or increasingly the Gulf states for work, sending remittances home that support extended family networks in ways that quietly prop up entire village economies. Those who stay build community through football, through church and mosque youth groups, and increasingly through small entrepreneurial ventures, hair salons, phone repair stalls, tailoring shops, financed through informal savings collectives called tontines, where groups of friends or relatives pool money and take turns receiving the full sum, a system of trust-based finance older than any bank in the country. As the heat of the afternoon finally breaks, Togo shifts into its evening register, and this is arguably when the country reveals its truest character. In Lomé, the maquis fill with the smell of grilling meat and the low hum of conversation as friends gather after work for beer, grilled fish, and the kind of unstructured talk that stretches for hours without any particular agenda. In villages further north, evenings mean gathering around a shared fire, elders recounting stories that double as moral instruction for the children listening, the harmattan cooled air, a welcome relief after a day of heat. Along the coast, fishermen returning from the sea haul their pirogues onto the sand as the sky over the Gulf of Guinea turns the color of the fetri detsi they'll eat later that night, an accidental echo between meal and horizon that no one comments on because it simply is the color the evening takes here. What defines Togolese life more than any single ritual or dish or festival is this constant return to gathering, the refusal to let a day end in isolation. Whether it is a family meal from a shared bowl, an evening at the maquis, or an elder's story by firelight, the emotional center of gravity here always points back toward other people. None of this is to suggest life in Togo is without real difficulty. The country remains among the world's least developed by UN classification, with more than half the population having lived below the national poverty line in recent years, and access to reliable electricity, clean water, and quality health care varies dramatically between Lomé and the country's more remote northern regions. Political life has also been marked by decades of tension. The Nasingbe family has held power in various forms since 1967, and questions about democratic transition and press freedom remain live, sensitive subjects among Togolese, particularly the younger generation who have known only one ruling family in their lifetimes. Infrastructure gaps, a fragile healthcare system, and the pressure of a rapidly growing population on limited arable land are not abstractions here, but daily realities that shape decisions about migration, family size, and career. And yet people stay, and more than that, people build lives here with genuine intention rather than mere resignation. What holds them is difficult to reduce to a single explanation, but it has something to do with the density of relationship that Togolese social life cultivates. The fact that almost no one here is truly alone, that obligation runs in every direction and is met more often than it is broken, and that even amid real hardship, the rhythms of greeting, gathering, and shared meals persist as a kind of daily proof that the community holds. That, in the end, is the quiet argument this narrow country makes to anyone paying close attention, that a nation does not need vast size or global fame to hold something worth understanding. Togo remains a sliver of land between larger, louder neighbors, rarely mentioned in the same breath as its more visited counterparts across West Africa. But within that narrowness lives an entire world. Mountain wrestlers proving their manhood in July dust, lagoon fishermen reading the color of the evening sky, market women whose grandmothers once controlled an entire textile economy, and young people building small businesses on borrowed trust rather than borrowed money. The tension that opened this story, between isolation and connection, between a landscape you can cross in a day and a culture too layered to fully cross in a lifetime, never really resolves. It simply becomes the texture of daily life itself. And perhaps that is the more universal truth this small country offers, that the measure of a place was never really its size, but the density of the lives lived inside it, and the quiet, daily insistence of its people that no one eats alone, no evening ends unmarked, and no day begins without first greeting the person standing beside you. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending this time in Togo with me. This channel exists because I'm endlessly curious about how people actually live in places the rest of the world rarely stops to think about. Not the postcard version, but the real daily texture of it. If that's something you're curious about too, I'd love for you to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss where we go next. And if you have a question about Togo, a place you'd like to see covered, or even just a thought about what you watched today, drop it in the comments. I read every one, and honestly, some of the best future episodes have come directly from what viewers ask. There's another story like this one waiting in the next video, so stick around and I'll see you there.